So BellaBeauteBar recently sent me quite a few things in PR to try out, and one of them was this palette called the Sun and the Sea palette. So I couldn't narrow down to just 2 looks for demonstrating this palette. I ended up creating 4. So I feel like that was enough to warrant a dedicated video on just the palette itself. And then I'll come back and do another video on the rest of the things they sent me. So like I said, this was sent to me in PR from BellaBeauteBar. They did also offer me an affiliate code. And after trying out all the products they sent me and having a really good experience, I did agree to join their affiliate program. So I do now have a code. It is my handle, SEEKINGSHIFTS, and it will save you 10% on your purchase with BellaBeauteBar. And I will earn a small commission. So thank you so much if you do use that code. Of course, with that in mind, I do have some bias towards the brand now that I am an affiliate with them and I did receive these products at PR. So as always, I'm going to try to remain as objective and fair as possible, but there's no way for me to be completely unbiased. So this is an 18 pan palette and I feel like it's a really unique color story for a mermaid themed palette. Like I feel like the obvious approach here would just be teals and greens and blues, but they took a little bit of a different approach where they incorporated some of these like terracotta, reddened shades. They have some iridescence, purple, they have some browns, and I really like it. I did see some feedback that not everyone was thrilled with the inclusion of these 4 browns in the top row. So for me, it wasn't an issue, and obviously consider the source when I'm saying this. I mean, some of my favorite palettes in my collection literally are gradients of brown mattes. For me, including these more neutral shades made the palette so much more approachable, and I was able to think of 4 looks I wanted to do like immediately, whereas normally when I get sent a new palette, like it's normally like 1 or 2 looks that I can come up with, and then I have to start incorporating other palettes or singles to make it a little bit more wearable for me. I will say I do wish that the shade Basque was a little bit deeper just to give a little bit more of a variety in depth, and I also feel like I wish there was a little bit more of a difference in these 2 shades. Like I feel like there could have been more of a tone or undertone difference. So I think I'll go through and swatch all the shades and describe them to you, then we'll get into the comparisons and then the demo. So the first shade here is called Tan Lines, and this is just like a cream colored matte. This is the type of shade I would use to blend out the edges of like any of these mattes or to start off a look and make it a little bit more approachable for me. This next shade is called Sandcastle, and this is a really beautiful sparkly mauve shade. It feels like a traditional shimmer. I know sometimes in these palettes it can feel a bit dimethicone or squishy. To me, this one just feels like a regular shimmer eyeshadow. It's got a little bit of texture to it. Okay, next we have Sunbathe, and this is like a caramel brown, definitely a warmer tone. Next one is called Beach Babe, and this is like just a deeper version of Sunbathe, a little bit more neutral. The next shade is called Overexposed, and this is like a terracotta. This one is a really nice tone. I have like dried nail glue on my finger, so that's why there's this like weird line in the swatch. It's nothing to do with the actual eyeshadow. And then here's Basque. This is a deeper brown and it has a little bit of that red in it. I think this will depend on your skin tone too, but for me, like I do see a good amount of differentiation in these browns, and like from my eyes as someone who really enjoys neutral eyeshadows, I feel like I can appreciate these tonal differences and think of different ways I would use each and every one of these. If you're more of a color lover and you see like all browns as one and the same, maybe this isn't the palette for you. If you're someone like me who brings in a palette like the Viseart Neutral Mattes or like the Natasha Denona Biba palette to make a colorful palette more wearable for you, this could be like a good all-in-one palette. Okay, next we have the shade Sunkiss, and this is like the very common type of like rainbow iridescent eyeshadow. It goes from gold, green, teal, blue, like the Clionadh Luxe, Terra Moon, Lightyear, Devinah Proteus. Like pretty much every brand has their own version of this shade. Very useful iridescent, like you can recreate so many other eyeshadows by layering this over different bases. Nice to see this in a palette. Then we have this shade called Mermazing. This is really unique. It has an indigo base and then this like purple to green shift. Hopefully you can see that here. Really different, and it has a smooth finish. Then we have the shade Bikini. This is like a vibrant purple matte, a little bit on the warmer side. As far as the matte formula in this, I think they recently upgraded their matte formula from what I understand, and they blended easily for me. I'm not the best at blending. I don't have strong opinions about mattes unless they're really good or really bad, and these are good. And for reference, my favorite matte eyeshadow formulas are Natasha Denona and Viseart. Okay, the next one is called Daydream. This is a beautiful bronze that shifts to orange and gold. Really great spicy neutral. I didn't realize this would have any shifts, but I was excited to see that. This shade is called Sunset. This is like a cream crimson to orange to gold shade. Got that smoother finish. And then we have the shade called Heat Wave, which was really interesting when I first saw it. It looks like something I've seen before, but something about it is really unique. It has this like, not a black base multichrome, it has this like sheer deep gray base, and then it shifts from red to orange to gold to green. This one was like immediately really exciting to me when I saw the palette, and then I watched Millie's video, Bad to the Brow, and she said it's like pretty spot on for this one shade called Zor-El from an Adept palette that's discontinued, and that had been living in my head rent-free forever. So check out her video. She does compare them side by side. I don't have the Adept shade for reference, but I thought that was pretty cool to see. Okay, next row we have Water Nymph. This is another iridescent, and this shifts to pink, orange, gold, green. Another very versatile type of iridescent multichrome. Okay, next one is one of my favorites in this palette. This one's called Siren, and it has this sheer purple base, and then it has these teal sparkles, teal to blue to purple. It is so sparkly and wet looking, like total mermaid vibes. Next one is called, is it Caribbean or Caribbean? It's a very vibrant teal. Then we have the shade Tide Pool, which is a very sparkly blue. It's pretty similar to Siren, but it's deeper and it's more blue instead of teal. Another great sparkly wet look shadow. Then we have the shade Waves, which is a mid-tone slash deepish primary blue. And then Deep Dive is more of an indigo. So for these two shades, I did see some people who were not thrilled about having such similar shades in the palette. For me, again, this is not an issue, but you have to consider the source once again, because I'm someone who's like very much in the Natasha Denona universe, and she will often do stuff like this where she includes two similar-ish shades that have different undertones, and kind of like you choose one or the other and go in that direction for your look. After creating 4 looks with this palette, I've had an overall positive experience with it. It's going to take me a while to form my full opinion on it, but for me, I felt inspired by the inclusion of these neutral shades, and I felt like it allowed me to get a little bit more creative and come up with more ideas for looks. Let's go ahead and get into the comparisons portion, and then we'll get into the looks. Okay, you know the drill. Any comparison shade with an asterisk was received in PR. From left to right, we've got Terra Moon's Aurora Australis, Clionadh Forge Light, Heat Wave, Terra Moon's Crimson Eclipse, Sunset, Glam Shop Global Glam, Shellwe Makeup Yearning Voice, and then Sandcastle. Left to right, Devinah Centaurus, Daydream, Shine by SD Indulge, Terra Moon's Halo of Stars, Water Nymph, Clionadh Luxe, and then Sunkissed. And for the last group, we have Siren, Terra Moon's Bellatrix, Tide Pool, Glam Shop Acrylic Ice, and then Mermazing. Okay, so now that we've done the comparisons, let's go ahead and get into the demo. Okay, so for the first look, I'm going to start with the shade Basque with a flat shader brush. And I'm kind of just like roughly shaping out a wing with it where I want the most depth. Going in with a more fluffy blending brush with the shade Sunbathe, and I'm kind of diffusing out the inner edge of that wing, kind of bring it more towards the center of my lid. Gonna take the shade Heat Wave with my finger, kind of just winging at this point. I have a general sense of what I want to do, but I just took Heat Wave and I did like the middle slash outer third of my lid with that. Then I went into the shade Daydream with my finger, and I went in the inner third of my lid. I realized that a brush would be better for this application, so I went in with a tapered, kind of fluffy brush from Refer, and I applied up to my crease with the shade Daydream, and then kind of like diffused it along the edge with the same brush. Then I went in the shade Sunkissed with a flat shader brush, and I started with the inner corner and brought it all the way in towards the center of my lid, almost meeting Heat Wave. I wanted them to kind of meet in the middle and layer it over Daydream. I used my finger to blend them together. And here's the final look. Very simple, but I like how it came together. I feel like there's that gold and green unifying everything, but there's also those like terracotta reddish tones. Really pretty. Okay, the second look, I'm taking the shade Deep Dive on a small blending brush, and I'm packing it on my outer corner using patting motions. And I know I said this formula for the mask is just good, but like I'm looking at this footage and you can see it's pretty much blending itself along the edges. Especially for such a deep and pigmented shade, like it's pretty impressive that I didn't have to bring in anything else to get that nice diffusion along the edges. So anyway, taking the shade Mermazing with my finger, and I'm just going to pat it on the outer half of my lid, kind of like blend it into that matte with my finger, bring it all the way up to the crease. Then I'm taking the shade Sandcastle with a tapered blending brush, and I'm going on the inner third of my lid, bringing it all the way up to my crease, and then kind of like blending it into the shade Mermazing to create a gradient of sorts. And here's the final look. I like the gradient that I created here, and this just shows like a situation where I would use that indigo matte to go in one direction versus the blue matte for another direction, which I'll show you in a bit. For the third look, I'm taking the shade Overexposed, and I'm taking a blending brush and applying that literally all over my eyelid, all the way up into the crease. This is that beautiful terracotta, like baked clay shade, and I feel like I really undersold the matte formula when I was talking about it earlier, because this is just applying and blending so beautifully. I went into the shade Tan Lines with that same fluffy blending brush, just like a tiny bit to diffuse the edges a little bit. I would use this shade with like literally any of the colors to create a more seamless blend. Then I went in the shade Tide Pool, which is that sparkly, wet looking blue shade, with my finger and just tapped it all over that matte. I know some of you were interested to see more about how I like to layer shades together to create different effects. So this is a prime example. I would just lay down that brown all over and then put the blue on top, and it kind of creates a similar effect to what a blue brown pigment would create, but it is more of like a terracotta base. I feel like it's pretty unique. And here's the final look. Okay, so for the fourth and final look, I'm taking the shade Waves, which is that primary blue matte, taking a small blending brush and starting to pat it into my outer corner. Then I'm going in with a second layer of it and really building up the opacity. You can see how much more vibrant and intense it looks once I went in with that second layer. Very buildable. Then I'm going in with a more fluffy blending brush that had no product on it and just kind of like diffusing the edges to create a more seamless blend. Taking the shade Bikini on that small blending brush with no product on it, and I'm gonna do like a halo eye situation, but instead of just like one color on both sides, I did the blue on the outer half and the purple on the inner half. So I'm just kind of like building it up on the inner third of my eye, bring it into the crease because I want to blend them together in the middle. Then once most of the product was off the brush, I worked on diffusing the two colors together in the middle. Shade Siren with my finger. It's that beautiful like purple base with the teal sparkles, and I'm just applying it on the very center of my lid. I was trying to do a bit of a more precise application and not let it get like literally all over my eyelid, but then I went in with a fluffy brush around the edges, and as you can see, it kind of spread out a little bit more. I still like how it came out though. And here's the final look. Once again, very simple like all the other ones. That's just how I like to do my makeup in real life. But let me know which of these four looks was your favorite. I'm having a hard time deciding. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.